Frameworks and principles behind our moral disposition. The basic theories as frameworks and ethics by De Guzman in 2017. Metaethics is a branch of ethics that studies the nature of morality. Such, it talks about meaning, reference, and truth values of moral judgments. It also explains what goodness and weakness means in how we know about them. Metaethical theories are commonly classified semantically as either cognitivist or non-cognitivist, substantially as either universalist, relativist, and epistemologically as empiricist, rationalist, or intuitionist. Cognitivism states that the moral judgments convey proposition that is, they are truth barriers, or they are either true or false. Most ethical theories are cognitivist as they contend that the right and wrong are the matters of fact. The most famous forms of cognitive ethics are the moral realism and the ethical subjectivism.
Moral realism claims that the existence of moral facts and the truth of moral judgments are independent of people's thoughts and perceptions. It maintains that morality is about objective facts that is not facts about any person's or group's subjective judgment. Ethical subjectivism. Ethical subjectivism, on the other hand, holds that the truth of ethical propositions are dependent on the attitudes or standards of a person or a group of persons. Non-cognitivism. Non-cognitivism denies that moral judgments are either true or false. It claims that ethical sentences do not convey authentic propositions, hence are neither true nor false. Example of non-cognitivism is the emotivism, that the most popular form of non-cognitivist theory. It submits that moral judgments are mere expressions of our emotions and feelings.
Universalism versus relativism. Moral universalism theorized that the moral fact and principles apply to everybody in all places, also called moral objectivism. It claims that a universal ethic exists and that applies to all similarly situated persons regardless of nationality, relationship, culture, race, gender, sexual preference, religion, or any other differentiating factor that is not fact about person. Second is the moral relativism. Submits that different moral fact and principle apply to different person or group of individuals. Empiricism versus nationalism versus intuitionism. Moral empiricism states that the moral facts are known through observation and experience. The theory is an extension of empiricism and epistemology, which state that all knowledge, matters of fact, is derived from experience and that our mind is not equipped with pre-experienced concepts. Moral rationalism contends that moral facts and principles are knowable a priori, that is, by reason alone and without reference to experience. Moral intuitionism submits that the moral truths are knowable by intuition, that it's by immediate, instinctive knowledge without reference to any evidence.
Other basic theories as frameworks in ethics. Normative Ethica. Normative ethics is the branch of ethics that studies how man ought to act morally speaking. Three classifications of normative ethical theories. Number 1 is deontology, number 2 is teleology, number 3 is virtue ethics. First is the deontology. It is an ethical system that bases morality on independent moral rules or duties. The term came from the Greek word deon, which means duty, implying the foundational nature of man's duties or obligations. Second is the teleology. Refers to a moral system that determines the moral value of actions by their outcomes or results. From the Greek word telos, which means end, teleology takes into account the result of the action as the exclusive consideration of its morality. Third is virtue ethics. As a moral system, emphasizes developing good habits of character like kindness or generosity and avoiding bad character traits or vices such as greed or hatred. Virtue-based theories give importance to moral education, which molds individuals to habitually act in a virtuous manner. So, thank you.
Other basic theories as framework in ethics is the applied ethics. Applied ethics is a philosophically examine specific controversial moral issues. Using philosophical methods, this area of concern in ethics attempts to determine the ethically correct course of action in specific realm of human action. The 5 applied ethical issues nowadays are classified into various subfields. The bioethics, environmental ethics, business ethics, sexual ethics, and social ethics. Number 1 is the bioethics. This concerns with ethical issues about life, biomedical researches, medicine, healthcare, and medical profession. Number 2 is the environmental ethics. It deals with moral issues concerning nature, ecosystem, and its non-human contents. Third is the business ethics. It examines moral principles concerning the business environment, which involves issues about corporate practices, policies, business behaviors, and the conducts and relationships of individuals and organizations. Fourth is the sexual ethics. It studies moral issues about sexuality and human sexual behavior. It examines topics like homosexuality, lesbianism, polygamy, premarital sex, marital fidelity, extramarital sex, non-marital procreation, level-less sexual relation, safe sex, and contraceptive. Lastly is the social ethics. It deals with what is right for a society to do and how it should act as a whole. Its focus is on what may be deemed as a proper behavior for people as a whole.
Virtue Ethics by De Guzman, 2017. Virtue ethics is a moral philosophy that teaches that an action is right if it is an action that a virtuous person would perform in the same situations. According to the theory, a virtuous person is someone who acts virtuously, and people act virtuously if they possess and live the virtues. Virtue ethics puts emphasis on developing good habits of character and avoiding bad character traits or vices. Virtue ethicists such as Aristotle hold that people live their lives trying to develop their faculties to the fullest extent. Aristotle's Ethics. Aristotle's works specifically concern morality, the Eudemian ethics, and the Nicomachean ethics. But since only a few have studied the former, the Nicomachean ethics has been regarded as the ethics of Aristotle since the beginning of the Christian era.
3 general descriptions, which are interrelative, can be used to depict Aristotle's ethics. First, his ethical system may be termed self-realizationism. When someone acts in line with his nature or end, telos, and thus realize his full potential, he does moral and will be happy. Aristotle's view is also of type known as eudaimonistic. As such, it focuses on happiness, eudaimonia, or the good for man and how to obtain it. Finally, his moral philosophy is Aristotle or virtue-based, whereas act-oriented ethics and focuses mainly on what we should do.
Thomas Aquinas Ethics. Thomas Aquinas Ethics, also called the Angelic Doctor and the Prince of Scholastics. Thomas Aquinas is an Italian philosopher and theologian who ranks among the most important thinkers of the medieval time period. In ethics, Aquinas depends so heavily on Aristotle. Like the Greek philosopher, Aquinas believes that all actions are directed towards ends and that happiness is the final end. Aquinas declared that ultimate happiness is not attainable in this life, for happiness in the present life remains imperfect. The natural law. Central also in Aquinas' ethics is his typology of laws. By the term law, he means an ordinance of reasons for the common good, promulgated by someone who has care of the community.
There are four primary types of law. For Aquinas, there are four primary types of law: the eternal, natural, human, and divine. First is the eternal law, refers to the rational plan of God by which all creation is ordered. Second is the natural law, is that aspect of the eternal law which is accessible to human reason. Third is the human law, refers to the positive law for natural law to be adhered to. More exact and forceful provisions of human law are helpful. Lastly is the divine law, serves to complement the other types of law. It is a law of revelation disclosed through sacred texts.
Utilitarianism, de Guzman in 2017. Jeremy Bentham states that what is useful, is good, and the moral value of actions are determined by the utility of its consequences. Pleasures and minimize pain. It puts forward that an action is right if it amplifies pleasures and minimizes pain. Utilitarianism explains perhaps the most prominent moral philosophy in the last 2 centuries. Utilitarianism is known as a consequentialist theory, a subclass of theological moral theory.
Justice and Fairness, de Guzman in 2017. Roles, justice, as fairness. Many consider the American political philosopher Rawls 1921 to 2002 the most important political philosopher of 20th century. Rawls rejected utilitarianism and offered some argument against such a theory. Rawls have two principles. First principle of justice, often called the liberty principle, concerned political institution. Second principle of social justice consisted of fair equality of opportunity. And the difference principle, which are concerned with the social and economical institution.
Distributive justice is allocation of good in security. Example on it is the equity, equality, power, needs, and responsibility. Equity. Members' outcome should be based upon their inputs. Therefore, an individual who has invested a large amount of input, example, time, money, energy, should receive from more groups than someone who has contributed very little. Equality. Regardless of their inputs, all groups members should be given an equal share of the reward cost. Power. Those with more authority status or control over the group should receive more than those in a lower level position.
Justice and fairness, De Guzman in 2017. Needless and greatest needs should be provided with the resources needed to meet those needs. This individual should be given more resources than those who already possess them, regardless of their input. Responsibility. Group members who have the most should share their resources with those who have less.